You've probably heard a lot about scammers. You know, they're the people that are trying to access your personal information to get your money. And if you're like me, you get multiple phone calls every single day from some automated service claiming to be the tax office or some other authority. And then, of course, there are these text messages that you get where you're told to click a link for delivery details or the like. What this usually does is install some virus on your phone, allowing all your personal information to actually be harvested. It works the same as, say, an email phishing scam. This is where a legitimate-looking email lands in your inbox with an inviting link to click. When you do, the scammers take control of your PC and can basically do whatever they want. Now, it wasn't that long ago a mate of mine was subject to a sophisticated version of this in relation to a property settlement. The compromised computer was actually with his conveyancer that was handling the settlement. But as the date of finalisation got closer, he started to receive legitimate-looking emails purportedly from the agency he was working with. They had the same familiar tone, he knew the person personally, and the formatting was exactly the same as the previous correspondence. And it even appeared to come from the right business email address. All of this is not surprising because you see the scammers had apparently been observing the regular correspondence for some time until they felt they could confidently replicate it for the purpose of stealing money. And so when my mate was asked via email from his friend, or he thought it was his friend, to transfer the funds in anticipation of the settlement, he did so. It was a little bit shy of $1 million, a heck of a lot of money. He only became aware it was a scam when his real conveyancer actually called him about the funds transfer and said, why haven't we received the money? Well, it turns out the money was sent to the bank account of an overseas student who, in turn, transferred the bulk of the funds to an overseas account. They weren't recovered. Most of the money was never recovered. There was just some left in the overseas student's account here. Fortunately, though, my mate wasn't left out of pocket. He was only inconvenienced as bank and professional insurances actually kicked in. So, the institutions did the right thing. But today, I received a new twist on these scams. Somehow, they got some of my bank details. They sent me a legitimate-looking email asking me to contact them because they couldn't get me on my phone. So I called the number and was immediately suspicious. You see, the phone was answered generically. They said something like, this is the customer support centre. They didn't say the name of the business. And the foreign-sounding chap who answered the phone was overly familiar. He instantly asked about me and my family's health. Now, that's never happened to me when I'm ringing my bank or any other professional service. As you can imagine, I was my usual charming self and said, "What do you want?" with a couple of extra words thrown in. This chap said he needed me to run through my security questions in order to disclose that information. So I had to give him all my personal detail and security question answers so he could tell me what he wanted me to call him about. How do you reckon I responded to that? Well, there was more of my charm that came out as I started to tell him what I really thought of him. And my wife, who was listening in on the call in our office, well, she was equally in hysterics and quite appalled at some of the language perhaps that I used until I hung up. Now, I tell you this because it was that close. I was that close to getting sucked into this. And so it's a word of warning. These scammers are becoming increasingly sophisticated and clearly have access to information that helps to legitimise their operations. So be very careful, and remember, in this day and age, the more you do to protect your privacy, the more secure you will be.